name is Rachael Griffith. I'm an attorney in Tyler, Texas. I manage the Griffith Law Office. We have an office downtown Tyler. We mainly practice family law, and that includes all things like divorces and custody, child support, and we also practice probates and guardianships as well. Today, I want to talk to you about expenses that might be associated with your family law litigation. When you meet with a family law attorney and you talk about attorney's fees and things that might be covered, it might be nice to know whether or not some of these expenses will come out of the retainer deposit that you give your attorney, or if you'll be expected to pay for them outside of your retainer agreement with your attorney. Typically in family law, at least in East Texas, most attorneys are going to require that you give a refundable retainer deposit of a large lump sum that they will bill their time against. So most firms, my firm included, bill by the 10th of the hour based on the task that they do for the rate of the task of the staff member that is going to be billing on that case. So if your attorney is going to court for you, they'll appear in court and they'll bill their time at their hourly rate for the time that they appear in court. Same thing on a paralegal. If they draft something for you, call you, email you, they're going to be billing by the 10th of the hour for the time that they work on your case at their hourly rate. You will usually have notice of each person's hourly rate within the fee agreement that you sign with the law firm, and it should spell out exactly who could possibly be working on your case and what their hourly rate is. That is a typical arrangement for your attorney's fees when it comes to your family law litigation. Our office sends out invoices once a month to let the client know what's been done on their case, how much has been billed, and what's left in the retainer. And so you're kept up to date on everything going on in your case. There are other fees associated with family law litigation. There's a whole myriad of different categories of fees. I wanted to give you an idea of what you could be looking at outside of your attorney's time to work on your case. The most common one is filing fees. Filing fees to file a divorce or a modification can range anywhere from about $100 for modifications or enforcements to $350 for divorces, and modifications in some counties can be around $350. That's a fee that the county assesses for filing your case. So typically the attorney will expense it from the retainer deposit that you gave and add it to your invoice as an expense that they paid out of the retainer funds. You may be expected to pay that outside of your retainer deposit. Just talk to your attorney and see how those fees are paid. Another common category is process servers. Process servers aren't free. They're not usually somebody that's an employee of the law firm. They're someone the law firm hires to go and serve the papers that you need served, either on the other party or a witness. Those fees can be around $100, $120, up to about $200 for each person that you're trying to serve, depending on what you're serving. A lot of times there's records that need to be requested in your case, and the different people that you're requesting records of may have a fee for that service. It can be anywhere from $100 to $200 for things like bank records. Sometimes they charge you to get copies of medical records. So sometimes you need to request records in your case, and the place that you're requesting records from, the bank, the medical office, different records custodians may have a fee for that request because they're having to print things or put it on a CD, and it takes time out of their day. Typically, you can expect around $100 for something like that. If you need different evaluations done by licensed professionals like counselors or psychologists, maybe a psychological evaluation, a substance abuse evaluation, you can expect anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 for those kinds of services. And that is typically a fee that you'll pay outside of your attorney's fees deposit. You'll pay that on your own, and your attorney's not usually fronting that fee for you. Family therapy. If you're doing something like reunification therapy for an estranged child and parent relationship, or you're going to family therapy to help fix the dynamics with the co-parents and the kids, the therapist will usually charge around $100 an hour, $150 an hour for their time, and you'll be expected to pay that directly to the therapist. Those things are usually not covered by health insurance. If you have an amicus appointed to your case, an amicus is an attorney that's appointed to represent the best interest of the children. You're fighting over custody, who should have primary. That attorney needs to be paid for their time. It's not something that the county pays for, it's something that the parties pay for. Typically, an amicus will require around a $3,000 retainer deposit, depending on the amicus, and that's usually split between the parties. So you and your ex are having to split that cost. It could be more than that if you're going to a jury trial or have a long, very heavily contested case. It takes up their time and they charge for their time. There's things like drug tests, DNA tests that you might expect to have in your case. If you have drug issues of one party involved, sometimes the judge orders everybody to go get drug tested. Those can be anywhere from $100 to $300 or $400, depending on the type of test that you request and the urgency of the results that you need. DNA tests around about $200 if there's a question about paternity, who is a child's father or parent. Then you send them to a lab, just like a drug test lab, and they'll run a forensics and you can see the results of that test. Those have fees associated. Things when we're talking about property in a divorce case, there's fees you might expect, like a forensic CPA might be hired in your case to trace or characterize property or accounts or value of business. Those fees can be anywhere from $1,500, $3,000, $5,000, depending on what you need done, depending on how extensive their work needs to be. You may need to have an appraisal of a piece of real estate. Those around this area, if it's just a house with, less than an acre, about $500 per appraisal so that you can see what the value of that property is from an expert's perspective. If you need to call any of these people to testify, whether it's a forensic CPA, a psychologist, a counselor, they will charge you for their time to come testify. That can be, a varied range of amounts, anywhere from $1,000, maybe less if it's only part of a day, to more, just depending on their time. So when you're hiring experts, it's a good thing to ask, okay, how much do you charge if we need you to come testify? That's something you need to consider. If you have someone run a security check, maybe you want someone to check for recording devices in your home or in your vehicle, or you need someone to make a copy of a phone so that we can extract deleted data, or check for text messages that have certain evidence. Forensic IT experts can charge a variety of amounts for different services that they offer. So that's something to consider whenever you're looking at needing that service. There's smaller fees like printing and mailing. You may ask your attorney if they charge for printing per page for various documents in your case. These family law files can be huge, and sometimes attorneys charge for things like that. You may want to ask your attorney if they charge travel expenses. Maybe you're hiring an out of town lawyer to come and appear in your local case, and they have to travel a couple of hours to get to the courthouse and back, and maybe they need to stay overnight. What do those travel fees look like? Is it the same as their normal hourly rate? Is there any different? Other unexpected fees that you can maybe consider is just the cost for general delay or hassle of litigation. There are things like continuances. Sometimes we plan and prepare for court, and we get to the courthouse and the court is just too busy to actually hear us that day. They need to reset us. Maybe an emergency hearing has come and taken priority over your case, or the docket is just too full. Your attorney is having to charge you for appearing for that case, waiting around to figure out whether or not we're going for the hearing and for the continuance. And then they may need to refresh their memory update the evidence whenever the new hearing is set. And that is another expense that may come to be in your case. So it's not always as straightforward and simple as a hearing is set and we're having it heard, and your expense is only the expense for that day. Things like emailing and calling your attorney, please take into consideration for your pocketbook the amount of time it takes for an attorney to respond to emails, do the relevant research to get the information that goes into responding to emails. A lot of people take it as a surprise that we charge for that time, but time taken away from other cases is time we're working on your case that we have to bill to the client. So you'll see expenses or line items in your invoice for the time that it takes to communicate with you. If there is a change in your life circumstance, so you need to move because you're separating from your spouse, you'll need to hire movers. You'll need to look into, changing the locks or rental deposits. There's things that are just extra expenses in your life because of this family law litigation. All of those need to be budgeted in when it comes time to move forward these cases. Finally, I'll mention fees for wrapping up cases. So if you have a divorce and maybe we have deeds that we need to draft because you're transferring interest in a piece of real property, the county charges us to file those deeds. So not only do you have the time and expense to draft them, have them signed, circulate them with the other lawyers, but the county will charge about a $50 fee. Usually it's a per page situation where it's a certain amount for the first page and then another lower amount for each page after that. Depends on how long the documents are. And so you'll need to consider that. Those fees will show up on your invoices if your lawyer has prepaid them, or they may ask you to go and file it yourself and have those fees paid. Things like changing birth records. If you're changing the name of a child or an adult, the vital statistics unit for the state will charge a fee for that application and that process. If you are dividing assets by a court order, like a retirement account, there is a document that we shorthand as QDRO, QDRO, Qualified Domestic Relations Order. There are fees for those QDROs. Sometimes you have a special service, prepare those. There's around $400, $500 for those to be prepared typically. And then you go and file those with the court and have the money taken out of the original retirement account and transferred into your new account. If you take money out early from certain tax sheltered accounts, there can be penalties and extra taxes that you're assessed for doing that. Something to talk about a CPA with on your decision making. I hope this video has been helpful to think about the wide breadth of expenses that can be associated with a family law matter. I don't mean to overwhelm you or scare you. I want you to be fully informed of the types of expenses that are associated with these things. Not all of these that I've mentioned would apply to every single case. Everything is very fact specific. So important for you to talk to your lawyer about what may apply to your case, what can you prepare for, what you need a budget for. Go from there instead of thinking that it's all going to apply all the time. You may have some of these things apply, and your case may be far more expensive than the things I've mentioned, and it may be far cheaper. When you go in for your initial consultation, I know you're wanting to talk about all the facts of your case and everything your lawyer might need to know. Do that, but also ask about the types of expenses that may apply to your case. Make notes, make a budget, be prepared for what you're about to face.